As a cannabis dispensary, you have two levers that you can pull: the average transaction size and the number of transactions. Now you multiply those two together, that'll give you your gross revenue for the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year. Now yes, you can upsell, cross-sell, and bundle things together to increase that average transaction size, but how do you actually bring more transactions through the door? Now in this video, we're going to talk about different cannabis dispensary layouts that could help you with your throughput of customers on any given day. Now if you have any questions about cannabis dispensary accounting or cannabis dispensary layouts or standard operating procedures, then please reach out to Green Growth CPAs via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. Let's hop right into the presentation.
So again, our topic today is going to be cannabis dispensary layouts, and this presentation is brought to you by Green Growth CPAs. Now, as you go through your licensing, you have to at some point create a diagram or a layout of your cannabis dispensary so that the city hall or the state authorities can approve this dispensary layout, and then you can actually get down to business, get your license, build out your store, and then start serving clients. So in this video, we're going to discuss some of the considerations around your cannabis dispensary layout with the intangibles as well as the tangible actual physical layout of the actual dispensary. But before we do, I need to let you know that the information contained in this presentation is meant for guidance purposes only and not as professional legal or tax advice. And further, it does not provide any personalized legal, tax, investment, or any business advice in general. So in this video, we're going to cover first why the layout of your dispensary is critical to its success. Then we're going to review some hardware and technology considerations, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment considerations, and then we'll dive into the physical design and layout. And we're going to talk about these from the least complex to the most complex layout to implement. We'll talk about the bank layout, the pharmacy layout, and then the open retail layout. So first, why is layout critical to the success of your dispensary? What you need to understand is that cannabis is not just a product. It's an experience from walking up to the dispensary, interacting with the staff and the furniture and the fixtures, to actually getting home and enjoying that product. Now, competition is fierce, so you need to create an impact in your customer's mind and impress them with the positive experience that they remember and crave and want to come back for. Now, in the world of advertising and marketing, there's a term out there called shopper marketing, and it's a term used to describe a marketing practice that improves the shopper's experience. Now, shopper marketing is a discipline designed to drive growth of the business by improving the shopping experience for the shopper. Now, shopper marketing is implemented by elements such as window displays, the display case design and where they're set out at, the in-store education, the placement of products on the shelves, and most importantly, the layout of your store physically. Now, your store is one of your biggest expenses. Rent is very, very high in cannabis, but this can be one of your biggest assets to drive revenue, and you can use it and manipulate it in a way that drives you more and more revenue. And cannabis dispensaries can benefit from a strategic store layout to help improve a variety of key metrics, including their average ticket size, the number of clients per hour, and even their labor cost. And truly, the layout of your cannabis store can and will impact how you schedule and utilize your employees, how you control your inventory, and how you serve your customers and the flow of the customers. So we're going to review 3 dispensary layout considerations, including hardware and technology, furnitures and fixtures and equipment, and then the actual physical design and customer flow. But there is a 4th consideration, which is state and local regulations. Now, you and your legal team need to review these regulations, and I won't discuss them in this video because they're so nuanced to every city and every state. But make sure that the design that you are implementing actually complies with the local cannabis regulations as well as the building codes for your city. So first, hardware and technology. Now, hardware and technology in your cannabis dispensary includes everything from the point of sale system or the POS system to the security cameras to the check-in kiosks. Now, you don't want to skip on hardware. It's an investment, and these pieces of equipment can most directly impact your customer experience. When you start using an outdated POS software or hardware system, for instance, this can delay the checkout process and force your customers to wait in long lines, which is not great for encouraging encouraging return customers or repeat purchases. Now, make sure that you buy technology that's the most recent model or as recent as you can afford and is likely guaranteed to work for a long or extended period of time. I want you to get into the mindset of investing into the experience and not seeing these costs as, something you need to avoid or keep as low as possible. Invest in your technology, which means you're investing in the experience, which means you're investing in your customers. Now, our team has been in a lot of dispensaries and worked with a lot of software systems to pull data for our clients. So we also recommend that you pick a tech setup that's flexible. So whatever platform or tool that you invest in, make sure that it's adaptable to other hardware and software tools. Being able to change your vendors is leverage in favor of you when you're working with software or hardware providers. But if the relationship between the hardware and the software is proprietary, then you could be held hostage by that service provider. For example, switching POS providers or updating hardware can become expensive if your technology is only usable on specific platforms. Now, with an average of 4 or even 8 POS systems per dispensary, and those things cost like $1,500 to $2,000 to buy and implement and set up each, your cost of changing will not be small if you need to replace everything when you change a vendor. And that's not taking into account the potential loss of valuable data if you switch platforms. So when you're going out and shopping around and trying to pick a service provider, ask your software or hardware providers about the ability to switch and have them answer those tough questions if they want your business. Now, next is internet. Your internet connection is so important to the operation of your business as well as for the happiness of your customers. So, few things. You need to plan to pay for a commercial grade connection with incredibly high bandwidth. And it's not just for confirming credit card transactions or for confirming metric and things like that, but other tasks as well. For example, you may need to send your video security logs each day. Now, in California, they mandate that security video archival requirements are 1280 by 720 at 15 frames per second for 90 days. You have to hold this in a repository that's off-site. Now, that's not a little bit of bandwidth. That's a lot of video. That's a lot of gigabytes of data every day. In some dispensaries we've seen, they're spending $2,000 to $3,000 a month on internet. So it depends on your service provider. It depends on how many competitors they have in the market, but it's not going to be a cheap expense. Also, don't depend solely on Wi-Fi for your internet needs. You want to try to hardwire as much of your technology as possible to Ethernet. This includes things like cameras, your computers, your POS systems, your printers, your menu boards, and whatever else you need to use consistently. Because if you lose Wi-Fi due to a router configuration error or bad firmware, then your day is going to be very, very painful. The next piece of tech I want to talk about is printers. Now, at a minimum, every dispensary needs to make sure that their printers are hooked up to a reliable internet connection. This means hardwiring your printers, because printing is a big part of running a cannabis operation, especially a legal cannabis operation. You're going to need to provide labels for your products, receipts for your clients, as well as the metric tags and many other things. And your printer is a vital piece of technology that may seem, not so important, but you can quickly ruin a customer's experience and your business's compliance if you don't have one up and running all the time. Essentially, no printer, no business. If someone's not getting a receipt or a metric tag can't be printed, then there's no sale there or there's no product to be put on the shelves. So make sure that you're investing in a quality workhorse printer. Now, next is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or FFE for short. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment may seem like a secondary thought and that you should minimize this cost as much as possible. I understand cannabis businesses, starting them and running them is quite expensive, but cannabis dispensaries can benefit from investing in their FFE to capitalize on branding and improve their shopper experience. Now, your FFE communicates your brand, the vibe of your store, whether it's premium or budget, and can help customers get answers to their frequently asked questions. What you need to understand is you need to think about form and function. It's got to look pretty, it's got to look good, but it also has to serve a purpose within the store to streamline your operation or add value to the client or the customer. For instance, some dispensaries add a dedicated corner to their store designed to provide education to the client. You could set up an iPad or a kiosk that offers maybe a quiz or a survey to help a customer find a product that best fits their needs. Or let them explore your product offerings by the desired effect, or have a dedicated staff member to handle all of their pre-ordering questions. Now, this type of space is especially important in markets where the general public has little to no knowledge about cannabis, such as markets that are just getting started with medical cannabis or even converting to recreational cannabis very quickly after the medical cannabis implementation. Now, in addition to this educational space, make sure your product labels and displays make it easy for customers to find what they need. It's a basic tenet of shopper marketing. You need to have those signs that say the flower is over here, or the vaporizers are over here, or non-THC products are over here, and CBD is over there. Really having a good customer flow and signs to show where things are. Now, according to one statistic, 20% of shoppers report changing their mind about a purchase after being influenced by in-store media. Now think about how you can actually guide your customers around the store with an experience and not just provide them with information about a product. It's called the customer journey. Now there's a reason why these huge companies spend a lot of money on designing and testing point of purchase displays, and this will increase your revenue. So test, feel free to try new things out, in-store media, point of purchase materials, things that are right next to the checkout, things that are right there when they come in, display case changes, changing out the configuration of movable display cases, things of that nature. And likewise, the way that you display your product influences someone's purchase decision, both overtly and subconsciously. Aside from the display cases and the point of purchase materials, digital menu boards make it easy to highlight a product, run a promo, and update your inventory on the fly. Now, compare this to a handwritten whiteboard or the chalkboards you see in those budget stores or the black market shops. It takes a lot of time to constantly rewrite that menu over and over, and it can get sloppy. So it's about the message and the quality that you're conveying to your customer. And then display cases can be used to spotlight a particular product or product line, or provide a sample for your clients to inspect and look at. Now, there are many options here. How are you going to show off your products? You're going to have jars? Are you going to have plates? Are you going to have something maybe more creative? And how you show off your products really says something about the brand that you're trying to convey within the dispensary. And finally, new dispensaries and even the existing dispensaries need to factor in potential future expansion plans, whether that's going and becoming a larger dispensary because there's going to be consolidation because some dispensaries close and you're going to see an influx in customers in 12 months, but also how are you planning to transition when recreational cannabis becomes legal, especially if you're in a medical only market right now. Will you need separate checkouts? Will you need to have a separate inventory, right? These considerations become very important when you start adding walls or fixtures or furniture that may not be movable in the future. Now we've covered hardware and technology, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. Let's dive deeper into the physical design and layout of your dispensary. So in this section, we'll walk you through 3 examples of how your dispensary could be laid out and set up, and then additional thoughts and considerations around each layout. Now we're going to go over 3 different layouts: the bank model, the pharmacy model, and the open retail model. So let's dive right into the bank model. On the screen now, you see an example layout of the bank model. Now on the left side, you see the check-in and the waiting area, a separate entrance and exit into the secure dispensary area, some product display cases and inventory in that darker blue area, bud tenders all around that, some non-THC product display, as well as an optional central inventory in the back of the dispensary. As well as I have an exit check there at the exit of the dispensary secured location, secured area, so that you can check and make sure everyone has what they paid for, nothing more, nothing less. That's an optional thing, but it could be something good to start off with so you can make sure that your bud tenders are not giving too little or too much product to the client. And what you'll notice in the top right corner, there is a website where you can see all of these models and layouts. If you go to blog.greengrowthcpas.com/cannabis-dispensary-layouts. You can also Google Cannabis Dispensary Layouts, Green Growth CPAs. It'll be the first result there on Google. So now that you've seen the bank model, let's just talk about the customer flow and some other consideration. Now, this store layout mimics a bank. That's why we call it the bank layout. Customers enter, they check in at a front desk, and then they wait in line to be helped by a bud tender. And bud tenders do everything from showing inventory, finalizing the sale, and then actually fulfilling on that order and giving the inventory away to the client. Now, the bank model is the most popular layout among cannabis dispensaries. It's the legacy model. model, everybody does it, or most people do it, I'll say, and the customer directly interacts and builds a relationship with your bud tenders, and then everything gets taken care of in one interaction, from answering a customer's questions all the way through order fulfillment. Now, it's relatively efficient and a friendly layout for many cannabis dispensaries, and we'll call this the standard or the average for a cannabis dispensary when we talk about the customer throughput and the average transaction size. Now, you can find efficiencies in this model by doing a few things. First, you can have digital check-ins, especially for repeat clients. They don't need to go through all the compliance stuff. They just need to say, hey, I am Frank Wilson, check in, and then they get called through and pulled into that secure area. Another thing could be having order history so that bud tenders can help customers reorder quickly, especially if you notice that clients say they want the same product that they had last time, but maybe they can't remember how much they bought or what the specific strain of what they bought is or what the brand was. And another idea is reducing the number of options for customers to choose from so that they can choose faster and with more confidence. There's a thing out there called choice paralysis. When there's too many options, customers or clients take too long to choose, and then when they do choose, they may feel what we call buyer's remorse. They may choose option C, and they were choosing between option A and C. Again, they finally landed on C, and now they feel remorse that, well, maybe A could have been better. Just try to reduce the number of options so you can put your customers through the line quicker and make them happier at the end of the transaction. Now, most importantly, we're a financial firm, so the things we think about are inventory, the transaction count, things like that. So there are a few inventory considerations for this model. Now, inventory is important because you want to reduce what we call the amount of shrink or diverted product within a store. Things just end up going missing, and this shrink can happen for a variety of reasons, from bud tenders being too generous and maybe customers having sticky fingers and walking out with things. But let's explore some inventory considerations. So first, you have three options in this model. Number one, bud tenders keep track of their own inventory individually. Number two, they maybe share some inventory between a few bud tenders. You know how we had that L shape? Maybe one side has a set of inventory and the other side of that L has its own inventory. Or three, everyone shares one central inventory. That was that lighter blue on the right side in the back of the store. Now, option 1 and 2, giving inventory control to each bud tender or a group of bud tenders, your customer experience will likely be improved and individual transactions can be completed faster because they don't need to walk around the dispensary as well as not rely on another person to fulfill on that order. But it does take longer to prep and close out each day for inventory counting. Now with option 3, a central inventory, you will reduce the amount of waste and diversion of product, again reducing that shrink, because fewer people have access to dispensing the products. Those people know that they are specializing in the inventory dispensing, and it can make opening and closing your day much quicker with this central inventory because you only need to count in and out one set of inventory. Now, we would suggest that you start off with having individual bud tenders having their own inventory, measuring your shrink, and then make a judgment call on whether or not to move to a central inventory. Now, it's important to know that you need to train your employees about calculating inventory and counting it in and out every day, and making sure that they understand their responsibility of that inventory. They own that inventory, just like they own the till when they pay in and pay out money from customers, things like that. And let them know that it is being measured for every shift, because when they know this, they're going to make better choices for themselves and for the business. So next is the pharmacy model. So on the left side, you'll notice that I kept the check-in and the waiting area the same, and I did that for all these models because I want you to see that the inside of the secure dispensary area is where the actual change in layout is really going to happen. Now, what you see as you walk into a pharmacy model, there's display cases maybe on one side as well as the other side, and in the back is the product pickup and the inventory, the fulfillment of the orders. And there's 4 windows there. There's 7 bud tenders in this example, and let's explore exactly what this model is. So in this layout, the customer checks in at that same front desk, and maybe they take a numbered ticket. And I'll get to this important nuance here later on tracking customers. And they wait in line to be helped, okay? Now the bud tender finishes with that previous sale and gives a claim ticket to the first client. Now then they help the next customer waiting in line. Now a central inventory will take those claim tickets and actually fulfill on the order and give that product to the customer. The bud tender only checks the customer out. They show them on the potential products, they help them make that sale, they scan that debit card or they take the cash in, and then they give them that claim ticket to go back to the central inventory, just like there would be at a pharmacy, to go claim their product and fulfill their order. Now, the main benefit of this model is that there is excellent inventory control. It's quick to set up and close out each day, and your operations benefit from having only a few people designated as responsible for your products. Again, these are specialized people that only work on the inventory. And I just brought this up, but this layout also allows your workers to specialize in certain duties. For example, if someone is a great salesperson, they can focus on just that task and charm the customers and move them through the line as quickly as possible. Another example is that inventory teams can specialize in packaging and dispensing inventory. Now, yes, specialization is great, but you should cross-train to a certain extent so that you can drop someone in any particular spot when necessary. But specialization can help an operation run smoothly and effectively. Now, compared to the bank model and due to specialization, you can likely get more people through your dispensary, which means more transactions per day. Just make sure that the fulfillment team and the number of windows in that central inventory can keep up with the throughput of customers going through the bud tenders and doesn't get backed up too easily. Now, one thing here with the inventory is to have pre-packaged flour so you can quickly pull it off the shelf and drop it into the takeout container. Now, one last thing on fulfillment here. Before you close out that bag and give it to the client, you should show the client everything that's going into that bag and make sure that it matches their receipt. This can help cut down on complaints of clients not receiving a product, which could then back up the entire operation and ultimately increase costs of doing business. So make sure that you're showing the client, hey, you paid for this, this, and this. You are getting this, this, and this. And I brought up that initial ticket at the beginning of this pharmacy. When they check in, they get a ticket. So this one final last consideration is client tracking. So that ticket that you give them could help with client tracking. Now, it's important that when you use this pharmacy layout, you have a way to make sure that each customer is who they say they are. Now, in most cases, you're going to track this customer digitally throughout your POS system, but they still need to prove who they are. Now, again, this means that they could have that ticket from the beginning. Maybe it's a unique identifier and they present that ticket every time, or they may need to present their identification more than once beyond the check-in, depending on your state and local regulations. Again, it could be at the check-in, when meeting with the bud tender, and then when picking up their order at that central inventory. Now, again, one way to mitigate having a client have to pull out their ID 2, 3, 4 times is to have that unique identifier, something kind of a pre-ticket that they use, a claim ticket throughout the entire process, or a unique identifier once they check out with the bud tender. That receipt is then used as a claim number so they can reduce the amount of times they pull their ID out between the actual bud tender and claiming their inventory or claiming their purchase. But make sure that your team has a protocol. They've created some kind of protocol and that ensure that that protocol is compliant with the regulations. And most importantly, make sure that the workers in your dispensary stick to that protocol. We don't just create SOPs or standard operating procedures for our health. We do it because it makes the business run smoother and it makes things better for the business and helps you stay compliant. And lastly, we have the open retail model. Now, again, the check and waiting area is the same, but the layout of the secure dispensary area is a little bit different. What you're going to see is product display cases all throughout the ends. Then there's some display cases in the center there. And then there's a checkout and inventory area in that top left corner. Now, there's a pairing between bud tenders and cashiers. Now, let's explore a little bit more about this layout. So this layout is similar to an Apple store. If you've been to an Apple store in the past 5 or 10 years, right, products are laid out for display for customers to interact with and browse at their leisure. At a dispensary with this open retail model layout, the customers would check in at that same front desk, and then bud tenders would roam through the store, answering questions and helping to fill a virtual cart for your customers. And of course, you could have actual baskets for your shoppers, but this adds complexity to the store layout. So once the customer is ready to check out, they head over to that separate area to pay and have their order fulfilled. They take that virtual cart, maybe a claim slip, it gets fulfilled, they pay, and everything's good. Now, if you've ever been to Vegas or are planning on going, consider checking out Planet 13. It's a dispensary in Vegas, and they've implemented this layout, and it's a very, very fun experience. And this layout is great for that premium style dispensary. Again, I brought up the Apple Store. When you think Apple Store, you think premium. You have no idea how many telephone calls I get on with clients that say, oh, I want to open a dispensary that has the Apple touch to it. This layout is that Apple touch. Now, it puts the customer experience first and foremost and can allow your staff to go deep with each client to address their needs and have a real conversation with the client. Now, compare this model to speaking with someone through or over a display case in the other two layouts. Clearly, an open layout lends itself to a much more personal interaction, right? It does, however, require a fair amount of staff members to be able to actually make sure that this experience is as seamless as possible. So that will drive up employee overhead costs. So be cognizant of that potential increase in costs. Now, this layout may seem appealing because it offers that personal interaction between client and bud tender, but considering inventory, we strongly recommend you use a virtual cart and not a physical cart, because you want to pair that virtual cart with a single inventory for the sake of inventory control. If you have some inventory outside of that inventory control or that central inventory, maybe there's batteries for your vaporizers or some kind of inventory that's not in that central inventory, things can get walked off with. Things can fit into clients' pockets. They may drop out of the basket for some reason. You never know. So I would say try to keep that central inventory for as long as possible and then potentially go to a physical or hybrid process, but really make sure you keep the THC in a central inventory. And you must have a protocol in place to reduce that shrink or waste in the central inventory as well as on that sales floor. Now, as I said in the beginning, we went from least complex to most complex. You really need to understand that this open retail model is incredibly complex, especially with newer or inexperienced teams that have bud tenders that haven't been in the industry that long. So in most cases, do not start here with your dispensary. It could be very damaging. It could just eat up a ton of costs. It can create a lot of confusion with the clients, a lot of confusion with your workers. Try one of these other layouts and then move to that other, open retail model or a hybrid model for that dispensary. And with this open retail model, our finance team typically sees a lower transaction volume relative to the other layouts, but a higher than average transaction size. And that could lend itself because you're building that personal relationship, that one-on-one conversation. You can answer all of the questions. You can take the time and bring your client through their journey to maybe even upsell them to premium products in any one of the categories. But understand, more time with each client, lower transaction volume, but potentially a higher average transaction size. Now, hopefully this presentation has brought you some value and helped you to understand the considerations for dispensary layouts and help you see that there are 2 or 3 major layout styles for dispensaries. It doesn't have to be all like the bank layout. And if you need help, please reach out to Green Growth CPAs to get help with laying out your dispensary for financial success. We're not just doing this to look pretty, we're also doing this for the function of making more money in your dispensary. And you can reach us via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. We've worked with lots of clients, people that run multiple locations, and even that individual dispensary owner. There are a lot of different considerations depending on your market, depending on your experience in the industry. So if you need help, please reach out to Green Growth CPAs. We can give you the considerations and help you walk through the ideas of laying out your dispensary for financial success. Reach out to us via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. Have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.